Welcome to the Whiskey Congress. Honest, open talk dedicated to speaking the truth to those who are open to hearing it. Black, white, right, left. Most importantly, honest, bold, and fueled by good whiskey. In Whiskey Veritas, we are Whiskey Congress. Join the evolution.
Welcome to a special edition of Whiskey Congress. Actually, it's a Whiskey Congress nuance collaboration because on the phone with me, yikes, I haven't even started drinking yet. On the phone with me from the state of Arizona is my buddy Michael Wood Jr. Mike, how you doing, man?
I am doing wonderful. It is great to do a collaboration. I've seen a lot of people start to do this, so I figured why not? We may as well. We talk to each other enough, so why not bring other people into our chaos?
Exactly. I was thinking about it that I'm in North Carolina, you're in Arizona, so I'm in a hot, humid place. You're in a hot, dry place, and unfortunately, I'm not at home in my Cleveland studio, so I've got a weird setup in my hotel room. But it is what it is. We traded some, or I woke up to some text messages about our last episode regarding the Texas shootings, and I do want to give you a chance or I do want to talk to you about that. But I saw, I think it was on your Facebook page, a split screen of you and Colion Noir from the NRA, and that was a tease like you were going to be on the Joe Rogan show together. Is that going to happen?
Oh my God, no. The reason that I did that is just, I don't know. I'm still pressing the buttons about this gun control thing because I have so many people commenting, and they're tagged me in things saying this gun proponent says they'll debate anyone. Go ahead to step up and tell them you want to debate. And I do that all the time, and then the people won't actually debate even though they're saying that they're going to debate. So somebody told me that Colin Noir, Colion Noir, whatever it is,
right,
said that on Joe Rogan, he said he would do a debate. And that was always a big deal for me because I've been a little bit personally pissed at Rogan and a couple of other people when it comes to the gun debate thing, because it was a big deal with me being on there that I wanted to have this debate, and he said he could get so many people to debate me, and nobody has debated me. Nobody's volunteered to go onto the show and actually do this debate. But Colin Noir said that he would do it. But the pictures that I captured on the Instagram is when Joe says, I'll set up a debate. The truth is I'm ready. You can see in our faces, I'm smiling. I'm like, yes, come on, give me some fresh meat. And when he says it to Colion Noir, his eyes get big, and he's like, huh? You're actually going to set up a debate? Like, yeah, bitch, let's do the debate. That's just really how I feel about it.
I, as you know, I'm a big fan of Rogan's podcast, and I listened to Colion Noir on there. And when he said that, Joe Rogan was saying, if I can come up with somebody, and I'm thinking, all right, maybe, to be fair, Joe Rogan's a bit older than me. My memory is sometimes bad. Joe Rogan smokes more pot than you. That can allegedly affect memory too. So maybe you weren't on the top of his mind. What's that?
He couldn't smoke me for an hour.
There's two challenges.
Couldn't hang with me.
Two gauntlets being thrown down.
I'll do that one on the air too.
I'm sure you would, and I'm sure he would too. But in all seriousness, though, I would love to see that happen. He did say, I'll debate anybody who's claimed that he can't get anyone to come on with him. And the one thing, I know you don't need my help in this, but I don't know, when's the last time you've been to a gun show, if ever?
Oh, of course I've been to gun shows. I mean, I don't understand. Like, even you,
No,
I know you.
No.
Hold on.
Gun shows are a weird culture.
Then. But you didn't know me back then.
True.
I get that. But I know this cool. Like, I've been to 20 gun shows.
Okay, so so Colion Noir said, if guns are so dangerous, then a gun show should be the most dangerous place in the world, and they're completely safe. And I'm like, okay, dude, total false narrative, because one, try carrying concealed in a gun show. They tell you can't. Two, try walking in with a gun to a gun show. They stick a zip tie through the action and completely disable it. So I didn't know if you've gone to gun shows and had that happen to you, but everyone I've gone to, they inspect every firearm that goes in. Like I said, they disable it with a zip tie through the action, and you are breaking the law if you carry a gun, even if you have a legit concealed carry permit, in a gun show. So all these folks who say guns make you safe, when you're around them, they change their tune a bit.
Yeah, I mean, and I honestly think that that's the reality of it. People know that when you really press this issue, it's a tough argument to make, to be pro Second Amendment as it's interpreted as what's not even it's interpreted as something to fight against the government, which the idea that that even means that everybody can go around carrying guns just creates an environment that you're just not going to win the argument.
Well, again, you and I have talked about this for the couple years we've known each other. I'm a gun guy, but I'm also a logical human being who could say, all right, you can't deny certain things. And so if we can transition from that into you had some texts for me. I don't think I woke up to them. I think I got off a plane and saw that you'd kind of blown my phone up. And I think it was over Steve and I talking about putting metal detectors in schools and putting additional resource officers in schools. And I think your point was that more police and more police patting people down has not made things better. Am I reading you correctly?
Well, I mean, I guess we're going to kind of blend our topics, because the way we were intending on doing this is that you were going to lead this for 30 minutes and then I was going to lead this for 30 minutes. But most of my bitches are pretty much
what I'm talking about.
So I guess we could kind of blend it in a way. So what you're talking about there, and why I get so animated with a lot of these things when it comes to what we're supposed to do about guns, is because your arguments, no offense, I'm not trying to attacking your arguments, are arguments that are pro-tyranny. You argue to make people be under surveillance and to have police searching through your children and going through their things and having fenced off areas and having guns around everybody, when the real just truth of the matter is that there isn't a mystery. It is all about the guns and all about the access to guns, and any other argument other than that we can explore, but I find them relatively weak. And then what happens is because those arguments are so weak, we kind of, I believe, that we kind of double down into that false sense of security that police make us feel better and make us feel safe, but that is just not the reality of what happens. The moment that you start putting kids in cops around in a school, let's go for example. So I get pissed off because I feel like people don't listen to me, and you guys are friends with me. But the fourth correlate to violent crime is the police. You are literally adding an element of harm and risk to your children. The odds of all the kids being in danger from a gun goes up exponentially, and then we will know that the cops will imprison those children. They will start enforcing laws on them in the order of safety and then marginalizing them, so you create more crime. Policing creates the problem that you're in. It's not the solution.
I thought about after I got so like I said, I got off a plane. I saw you'd blown my phone up pretty good. And honestly, so little inside baseball, last weekend was a whirlwind for me. I drove all over creation, flew from North Carolina, went to Ohio, drove to West Virginia and back in the same day, recorded the night before, and was pretty tuned up by the time I got on there. So I didn't remember what it was. And then I thought, oh shit, I better listen to this because I'm going to talk to Mike about it. And I completely understand what you're saying. And I thought it was kind of interesting to think of, because we on our show have talked multiple times about in inner cities where a resource officer would just beat the fuck out of a 16-year-old kid, sometimes a 16-year-old girl in school. And that's obviously horrific. You got an armed, trained police officer beating up a female child in front of her classmates. And I remember one incident, I think it happened in Texas. It could have been South Carolina. I don't remember for sure, where literally the class just kind of sat there like going through their work. It's not that I expected the children to intervene. It was their lack of shock that bothered me. So that's definitely a valuable element to the argument, that here's where it doesn't make life better on a day-to-day basis. But I've got a lot of friends. Go ahead.
Even the idea that the cop can keep you safe, though, is just, it does not align to reality at all. We do these things.
So it didn't happen in Parkland, did it?
Right. It doesn't happen in a lot of these places. The number one reason why these shooters are stopped are by somebody that's unarmed, that just grabs them, a teacher or something like that. The second reason they're stopped is by suicide. It's like, I mean, the third reason they escape and they get apprehended, and the fourth is that they actually get shot or stopped by a resource officer. But those resource officers, no matter, like, even if you get down to it, and they stop 10 school shootings, so they kill 10 students, maybe save 10 students, and then what really ends up happening is that those police officers all around the nation, they end up costing billions of dollars, and then even more into our criminal justice system, because when there's nobody to shoot, all they're going to do is arrest children and prosecute them, put them into the prison industrial complex, and then you give people reason to go shoot the fucking school.
So then what about this as an alternative? Because you do have to have authority figures in a school, right? Even if it's, gym teachers, and like when I was in high school.
Yeah, but dude, their authority figures are still there. Where do they go?
Well,
I mean, what do you mean?
Well, no, hold on. Let me say that. Gym teachers guarding metal detectors.
Yeah, it's retardedness. I mean,
no. I'm seriously, because metal detectors stopping guns from getting into the school strike me as a good idea. If instead of
why? Why does that strike you as a good idea?
Because it's better than nothing.
But
it's a weak answer, maybe.
Why is it better than nothing? You're saying it's better than nothing, but what does that mean? So everyone in the school we know doesn't have a gun,
right?
So now when when somebody goes to shoot there, they can definitely be more impuned. That's the whole reverse argument of saying that teachers want gun in school. So this is why I get pissed off. You guys have to. I know I'm grouping you.
I did not mean armed gym teachers.
No. But what I'm saying was they want armed resource officers or armed teachers in these arguments as just a gun proponent group. So the logic was then that guns make things safer. But then you say, well, those kids will be vulnerable. There should be no gun safe zone. So it's just like, what do you want? You guys have to find a philosophy. Is it guns make things safer, or is it no guns make things safer?
I didn't say guns. I said metal detectors.
Yeah, but the metal detector is then to keep guns out of the school. So I thought that the whole gun proponent position was that guns make things safer. So why are you trying to keep them out?
Well, I'm not saying guns make schools safer. I'm saying,
well, it's a devil's advocate argument.
Okay,
so if you think the police are going to make them safer, then that's what you're saying.
No, I'm admitting. I'm retracting the police. I'm saying put the metal detectors in there, but instead of having police officers and metal detectors, have gym teachers and vice principals and metal detectors, unarmed school authorities. So but at least.
Do you think there's evidence that that metal detectors stop shootings?
I think metal detectors stop guns from getting into places. I go through an airport twice a week.
Yeah, but is it the metal detector that's doing that, or is it the whole everything else that's involved?
Look, here's
right. So if somebody wants to go shoot an airport up, are they saying, "Oh no, there's metal detectors"?
I'm not saying people won't try because of a metal detector. I'm saying they'll be identified at the door rather than taking a tactical position before.
Why wouldn't they just shoot everybody? I don't understand.
What's that?
Nobody takes the gun into the school. You start from the outside. So you walk in, then you blast the two people who are standing by the door, and you just walk in the store shooting them. I don't understand.
But the loud noise made by the metal detector is probably a deterrent.
No, I mean, there's just no reason to believe that a metal detector is a deterrent. That's a claim.
Thank you for recognizing the sarcasm.
But that's a claim, The claim is being made that metal detectors make the school safer. And I've never seen evidence remotely pointing to that. And it doesn't even seem logical that it would make it safer.
So I know where you stand on, moving forward with guns in America. I believe your basic point is let's stop the flow in. Whatever you have now becomes more valuable because it's now a commodity that isn't just getting dumped onto the country. And if I say anything wrong, I know I don't have to ask you to correct me, but please do. So if that's the case, we're looking at 2, 3, 4 generations of hopefully improvement, but gradual improvement, right?
For if we restrict the manufacturing of guns?
Manufacture and entry of guns from other countries.
Well, I don't know how long it would take. It could be faster than we would expect, but I mean, giving it some kind of drawn out effect, we would be reducing gun saturation significantly. I don't know. It'd probably take 150 years to not see him on the streets, and it would probably take somewhere around 20 years for them to be not really be something that you see in criminal activity.
All right. I mean, that's speculation, but
Yeah, it's total speculation, but I think when you're talking about longevity, you're talking about the lifetime. So weapons just really last a long time. They're made solidly.
That's one of the problems is whenever people talk about this, they always want to come up with that instant fix. That, you know, there is no instant fix to this. We have 300 and some million guns in this country. You own a few of them. I own a few of them. You know, so it's not like
There are instant fixes.
What's that?
There are instant fixes. I mean, Australia demonstrated how you do an instant fix.
Do you think that would work here?
Of course, and I hate the argument where people say it wouldn't. I mean, whether you could convince the people to do it or not, I don't know.
That's what I mean.
It's just a matter of money, though. I mean, you can at least do something, but if you don't stop manufacturing, it does no good. So the only reason gun buybacks do no good is because you're just, I mean, you're funding, there's no cutoff.
You're funding an industry.
Yeah, I mean, it's pointless. You're literally funding the gun manufacturers when you do gun buybacks without restricting the supply. So you have to do both, of course. So if you did a gun buyback, I bet you offer twice their value, then half of them are off the street in a week.
Again, that's a culture. You know, the culture is different. You have to speculate a little bit.
But no, we always do that. We do this thing where the culture is different, like human beings are dramatically different, and they're just not dramatically different. Human beings react the same way under the same stimuluses of the environment. So our politicians are the ones that stop these things from moving forward. If we had a different political setup and you had referendums or something like that, it's clear that you would get something like this accomplished.
The only reason I would argue with that point is I think Americans in general, the Americans who would resist that mentality, are so dug in on so many flawed arguments with so many.
Care.
Okay, well, if
That's fine.
If the buyback is voluntary, and I don't know if it is or not. I mean, was Australia?
We don't have an epidemic of redneck hillbillies with their 40 guns running around shooting people. I'm not that concerned about that.
That's a good point. I mean, one of the arguments that the NRA folks make is these shootings don't occur by NRA members, and I don't know the statistics on that, but for the most part, I'm sure it's true. Certainly, when a 19 or 17-year-old student is doing it, they're not card-carrying NRA members. So
it's also like we always frame things in really ridiculous ways. It's also just like the reason why poor kids in urban areas don't have AR-15s to shoot up schools. These people can't afford the NRA membership.
True. Well, and
I'm sorry. I mean, you don't have a lot of rich kids doing this shit.
They're also not the other big Colion Noir thing. In fact, probably his biggest thing as a black NRA spokesperson is, the NRA isn't racist, and he'll make a bunch of points about how the liberal media will call it that. What's that?
I don't think it is.
I don't think it is either. And not as an organization. Now, having been a member of gun clubs in rural Ohio, the NRA may not be racist, but the NRA membership is forced on people in groups where racism is certainly not frowned upon.
I don't know if that's true.
I know it's true of at least one place.
No, I mean of actual NRA memberships, though. Like a lot of people act like they're in those clubs, but are they really officially? Do they attend the things, or do they just put a sticker on their car? I think those things are very different.
Well, I know that the club I belong to in the Cleveland area, in order to join it, I had to produce a valid NRA card, one that I did not have prior to choosing to join that club. So literally they said, we are a 100% NRA membership club. If you want to shoot your bow here and shoot your guns here, you need to have an active membership. And I don't think that's rare.
Did you just call them all a bunch of racists?
No, yeah, I did. No, yeah, Mike, I stood up and said, I'm going to make a point that these guys are going to understand and agree with, and it'll make the world a better place. No, I bought my card and joined the club and shot my bow.
But were they really racist? I mean,
no.
Is one of the things that I keep
actually, the club I was talking about was actually in Southern Ohio, and I'm not saying that, like, it's not like being a racist was a requirement of the club. I can say that I was in the club when shit was getting said that made me uncomfortable, and I would not, speak out and try to have a 12 against 1 argument saying what you're saying is stupid. And, when you live in it was actually Clinton County, Ohio, and you'd get a couple guys talking about, shit in the inner city, and I'm thinking, you have not set foot outside of your 3 houses per square mile neighborhood in 10 years. Anything you know about inner city is what you saw on the news, and you probably didn't even see that. You probably heard it from Rush Limbaugh, and just the level of ignorance is amazing. I know we talked we talked last week, and I was telling you a little bit about where I'm at right now, and I was really tuned up by the end of the conversation. So I don't remember exactly what I told you, but I'm in a majority black city right now, in a majority black workplace, and it's a bunch of really nice, very rural people. But you know, the perception that gets out there in the eyes of predominantly white rural areas is so misguided and flawed. And it's frustrating to me. And frankly, on a selfish level, it doesn't even affect me. I just hear it and see it. And I see enough of the, things that get said, and then the realities of the world. And it's depressing, actually.
I can't disagree with you. It's just I feel as though over the last few years I've come to see it a little differently. I think what comes out of people's mouths is these bad things, but what's really going on inside is relatively the same things for everybody. And they're repeating narratives that I don't think they actually truly believe in. It's like talking about God. Like everybody goes to the church and they all sit around singing these hymns like they actually believe this shit. They don't. But it's part of what is the socially. It's like almost small talk for that particular kind of environment.
You know, I know you're a devout atheist. I've had a real I don't want to say a crisis of faith, because that's too dramatic a term, but
Well,
I've
you
actually
should.
Well, you know, Mike, this is a little more than I've talked about on air, but I've stopped going to church, not because I don't. I'm glad I was raised Catholic. I think it helped me be a better person. You know, I've heard you on. Oh gosh, I forget. I think I remember what it was, but don't want to be wrong, so I won't say it. But I heard you say once that, you know, someone said, "Well, do you think the teachings of Jesus are wonderful?" And you said, "Yeah," but you know, if the teachings of Harry Potter are wonderful, that doesn't make them bad teachings, just not necessarily a real story. Now, I might not 100% agree with that, but I have lost a lot of faith in organized religion, and I've stopped going to church and just kind of focusing on my, you know, personal stuff and trying to be decent and be reasonable. And you and I have also disagreed a fair bit about the impact of Donald Trump. Well, watching the evangelical crowd just fold tents and suck up to Donald Trump made me realize, okay, there is so much bullshit. And yeah, I knew it for a long time, but that was just okay, this is a bridge too far for me.
Well, I mean, on a positive note, I would say, do you know who else had a real problem with organized religion and didn't go to church? Jesus.
Yeah, you're right.
You're
right.
That what my kind of general saying is that if you Christians actually acted like Jesus, you would not get complaints out of me. I'd be like, yeah, whatever, you weirdos, and I would be perfectly happy.
How many rounds in his Glock do you think Jesus would have wanted?
Exactly. You know, he wouldn't have had any. He wouldn't have said that he needed a gun to protect his family and needed a Second Amendment God-given rights, because I just don't think that that's really the case. I strive my best.
I think it's
to be atheist Jesus.
I think it's. You know what? I was trying to come up with a snarky joke there, and I just completely fumbled the. That could have been good if I could come up with a quick draw.
Isn't Leviticus even the Old Testament anyway?
Yeah, Yes, it is, but I didn't. I wanted to sound smart and say something stupid, and I managed to only accomplish one of those things.
Well, you know, I was an altar boy. I went to a Catholic school for
a
while. I've read that Bible inside and out. I explored it, and as soon as anyone actually explores it, you go, "Oh my God, shut up."
Well, so you were Catholic?
I mean, I went to Catholic school and
okay.
you know, but
because that's weird. A Catholic who read the Bible, we don't do that shit.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. I don't think I didn't read it then. I read it later.
Honest, a funny story. I have a friend that I worked with when I was in Southern Ohio, and she was maybe the most passionate atheist I've ever met. And she knew the Bible better than anyone I knew. And it was just hysterical how, because she was brought up in that environment and eventually said, okay, I believe in all these things. This is a woman who would, volunteer weekends working in animal shelters. I mean, she was just a wonderful person. But, like I said, a devout atheist who knew the Bible inside and out. It was hysterical when an occasional Bible thumper would challenge her on a biblical quote. She would say, well, actually, that's not what that chapter says. And then just spit it out. And I would sit there going, okay, what she said.
Well, the good news is
the good news, Mike. That's what you need.
It is the good news is what you need. Have you heard the good news? Why do they do that anyway? If only 175,000 people are getting to heaven, according to the Jehovah's, why the hell would you tell anybody? That should be your secret. You're just like lowering your odds so dramatically. I don't get it.
Have you heard the fake news? Is my question. That was
I think it's all fake news.
That was a combination political joke and religious joke. It felt good, actually.
It's all fake news. I don't know what the actual difference is. I would certainly argue that what is coming out of left-wing media and what comes out of right-wing media is no different than those very same religions that we're disparaging at the moment.
I rarely get dragged into religion disparaging. Well done, sir. We're about at the transition point.
I know. I was gonna say you're out of time.
All right, I'll turn it over. Do you want to do a quick come at me, bro, or just transition?
No, I was going to do the come at me bros afterwards because we're still kind of on the same plane. So there was just a few things that I picked out that I wanted to address. And sure, I'm picking on you, but it's just like if I pick on your arguments, I'm not trying to pick on your arguments. I'm trying to just make the argument for others to hear.
I love how you got kid gloves on now. When we're talking on the phone, there's none of that.
No, I guess. See,
I respect that. I appreciate what you're doing.
So I do hear a lot. People say, well, you need to bite your tongue once in a while, Michael. You need to soften your tones and how you say things. And since you guys do have begun to know me more, they should start to realize at some point in time that I bite my tongue so much and I really do soften my language. This is as soft as I can get.
No, you're doing good. Go ahead.
So the first thing that I wanted to discuss is I do have this whole thing with tyranny. It's a big thing that came up in all my writing, and I had never really thought of the concept of tyranny and what it really meant. And that's something that our founding fathers were really big on. And getting into that history from writing Crimes and Punishments, it really changed my perspective about what this means. So when you hear something like a gun control person or anybody with a government argument saying something like, why are we not talking about mental illness? Which is really dumb because all anybody ever fucking talks about is the mental illness, saying what they're not talking about it. That's fucking ridiculous. But the bottom line is that when you're saying, what are we doing about mental illness? Why aren't we looking at the people that have these problems? What you're arguing for is using state violence to control the actions of the citizens of a nation. And that sounds like incredible Orwellian tyranny to me. I am interested in a government that regulates objects. That is a fundamental reason why I want to restrict the guns. I do not want to restrict your activity. I think it is much more important that we have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, not that we have objects which ruin that ability to have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, so that it takes priority, and it takes a moral priority to use the violence of policing to regulate a factory building instead of regulating the activities of human beings. I think that is super dangerous and very authoritarian. And to hear that coming from conservatives, it really highlights to me that none of us have any clue why we're doing or saying the things that we're saying.
All right. So let me I actually was thinking about this the other day because of one of the most annoying, stupid things that captured the news in recent weeks, and that is the royal wedding. I give zero fucks about the royal wedding, and I offended a few coworkers at a happy hour the other day, saying that the only reason I care about anything there is if there's a a nuclear strike during the wedding, which I am not rooting for, but that's the only thing that would make it interesting for me. Yes, I was being dramatic for purpose of making a point, but the fact is that represents a group of people that used to be literally the entire country was under the thumb of a family and to some degree a person. And that's not that long ago. I mean, it's 500 years or, well, shit, not even that.
This is a tie-in to our song.
What's that?
So don't forget this. This is a tie-in to our talking about the song later on.
So I'm going to be honest. When you said let's choose songs, I thought you wanted me to pick the squarest white guy song ever for the purpose of making fun of me. But you have a song.
That would be up to you.
What's that?
It's up to you if you want to pick the square white dude song.
My musical taste is very bizarre, and I'm not a huge passionate music guy, and sometimes that gets mistaken by people as like I don't like music. I'm not a monster. Music is fantastic. It's just not something that like I, talk about a lot. But yeah, if you take a step back and look at the situation in the world right now, so much of the world is on fire. I mean, the Middle East is disastrous. A lot of Asia is disastrous. And one thing that kind of bugs me, and if I'm jumping topics too far, I apologize, but I talk to my friends who are generally, the friends I'm talking about now are on the right-wing side. And generally they live very comfortable, very safe lives. They're the first ones to say, I'm not going to. I had a friend the other day that posted on Facebook that he's not going to go to Buffalo Wild Wings anymore because they put out an anti-gun policy. And if they don't want us to be safe, he's not going to go there anymore. And of course, his friends, some of whom I also know, piled on and said, they're trying to take away our freedoms. And I thought, when's the last time anyone protected themselves in a Buffalo Wild Wings with anything up to a bottle of hot sauce and a challenge to try this? I am not wealthy by any means. You've been to my house. Wealth is not the word you would think of.
It depends on your perspective. You are the top 1% of the world.
That was my point. That was where I was going to go. Is I'm extraordinarily lucky. I mean, and lucky, and I'm not trying to pawn it off that I don't deserve any credit for whatever, but I am live an extremely comfortable, extremely safe, extremely blessed life. And there's lots of people who are way better off than me who act as though they are under the boot of oppression when in fact a lot of the world legitimately is. And I don't even know where I'm going at this point, but it's amazing to me how many people who are living incredibly comfortable, incredibly safe lives are furiously angry at some combination of the media and the government and act as though they are under the boot of oppression that's just waiting for the next shoe to drop, and their reality button just ain't working.
Well, they are to a certain extent, they do have a boot of oppression on them. All Americans do under capitalistic structure. That is what capitalism is. You take from others and you build upon and get riches clustered towards the top. That's literally the idea behind it. Listen to you vibrating, unprepared. But
sorry.
So what I was going to say to that is that I get where you're coming from. I just think we're all caught in these narratives that other people are supplying us. Like when I was picking out issues from the things I heard before, you guys were discussing the death penalty about one of these things, and we're saying that, and I wanted to clarify that the death penalty cannot be applied to juveniles and the mentally ill. And then you transitioned into saying, you guys, just as a group, that right. These mental illness issue, and then what should we do about it? And even if we take that idea of mental illness, the biggest thing we can do for them is to not have a bunch of guns laying around that they have access to them. It's literally about access to guns. There is no other data points that our problem can be attributed to.
Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, and so when we're talking about mental illness, I really want us to get the idea away from this. I don't think mental illness is a real thing. The body and the mind cannot be separated. And when things are going wrong, there's almost always a physical injury of some sort. Just because it's how the thyroid is reacting or how a certain gland is reacting or a chemical is going through the body, that doesn't really mean it's mental and body separated. These are just biological issues that people are going through. And so that fight or flight response, when you're talking about how somebody plans something out or whether it's instantaneous, you get these ideas, and Steve said it, where you view it as a snapping, and that is just a wrong way of looking at it. There's no specified time frame for how long a mental break from norm it takes with your consciousness. So that we have to really change our perspective on what we're saying. So say someone has a biological imbalance, it doesn't just snap. There is a long process, and we shouldn't have timelines attached to that.
Here's one thing that I know it gets said a lot, but I do, and I think it's legitimate, and you can bounce back with where's the data, and I don't know if the data is available, but the number of people, not just people who shoot up schools or do other bad things, but the number of people in this country who are on legitimately described drugs that dissociate them from reality is, you're a data guy, and I respect that, so I won't even try to make a data-based argument. I will say it is something that really needs to be analyzed, and the data needs to get out there, because
understand that every single data point that we have in the United States is correlated to crime reduction, right? We continue to have crime reduction.
That's true.
Right. So even if you say more people are on drugs, it's only correlated to lesser crime.
All right. But total crime, and the thing that I'm reacting to in the last episode of Whiskey Congress is just school shootings are something that some people.
I don't believe that's true either.
What's that? Number of school shootings are up?
I don't think so.
Where are you starting your timeline? If you're starting 20 years ago, I guarantee they're up.
I mean, I don't know. I heard you guys say this before, and do you know when the biggest mass killing in a school took place?
Biggest, I would think Columbine.
1968.
What happened in
Bath
1968?
Bath School. It was a bombing with 68 kids.
Where did that occur?
Let me see. I actually have my computer up. So Bath School.
But even if it's not, Mike, even if it's not the biggest single event, Bath
School, 1927. I was wrong.
Where?
Michigan. Bath Township, Michigan.
Bath Township, Michigan. How many deaths?
38.
Okay, but all right. So 38 people killed in Bath, and I know we neither of us prepared the data, and we're not really on different sides of this issue, I don't think. But in Bath County, Michigan, in 1927, 38 kids get killed in a bombing. How long until the next multi-death school incident? Because
you don't have the data though. So every time, so it's like the police shooting data. Everybody was like, oh my God, what does this mean? We're going to see some trend lines. And as we've gone back and got the data, it seems to just be about 1,000 or so every single year, going back to as far as we can tell.
I don't have the data in front of
me. Right here,
school
shootings are not the new normal, despite statistics that stretch the truth. That's a USA Today article. It's just typing it in real quick comes up with. I've never seen any indicator that school shootings are on a rise or mass shootings.
So you think it's just more media coverage?
Yeah.
I can't refute what you're saying. It certainly seems to me like the number of multi-death school shootings just keeps going up and up and up, and it almost seems like it's becoming a.
Yeah, you might have more casualties.
And I've got multiple friends and family members who are in the education industry, and many of them are saying like, "All right, what's next?" And I can tell you this: when I went to school a long time ago, get your free joke in there. The thought of someone coming into my school and shooting me never entered my mind. When this
but the idea of getting nuclear bombed was, and that was just as ridiculous.
Yeah, it was definitely real. We had drills.
Yeah, every single kid in this country was running afraid of a nuclear weapon that almost had no chance of occurring.
It's
Yeah,
all right. So
fear just doesn't correlate to anything of accuracy.
it's funny you say that because one thing that we as Americans tend to think of is the evil bad guys out there that are out to get us, and certainly there are entities and organizations that want to do harm to America because of our policies and our history and whatever. And I won't debate good, bad, right, wrong at this point. But what always gets lost is what's going on the other side. And what I'm really thinking of right now, North Korea is such a strange outlier that I don't even want to really get into it. But Iran is something I'm really passionate about because I know a little bit about Iran, not a ton.
No, we don't. No, you don't.
I don't.
No, you don't. The well-read are misinformed and the unread are uninformed. I mean, this is Samuel Clemens going back throughout time. That's my whole problem. And so when you guys were arguing about some of the things that we should do with schools, you also said about like being like Israel in that constant state of paranoia. Like that's something that we would possibly want for our people. It's that same kind of thing. I don't think any of this stuff is really fair.
Well, let me finish my point on Iran because I think we're actually going to be on the same page. I know a bit about Iran as knowing if there's again.
You're the worst.
I am. You know what? I turned off the other phone. I thought I had this thing on. Whatever. Steve would have lost his fucking mind by now if I had done that 3 times. It won't. Anyway. I'm old and I don't know this technology. Now, the average Iranian today at 8 o'clock their time was thinking way more about their commute to work and their daily life than they were about anything related to conflict, their government, America, whatever. The reason I'm so passionate about Iran is Iran has a relatively educated, young, progressive population, and their government is essentially dominated by religious, well, calling them religious fanatics would be a generous term, and you'll light me up for that because they're really opportunists using religion. But
of course they are,
and that's fucking everywhere, and that's why despite my until recently I was pretty aggressively is the wrong word. I was pretty much an inline Catholic, but even then I was very much about keeping religion out of government. And the reason, again, I'm so passionate about Iran is I believe that their population, if they had their way, would say enough of this religion bullshit. Let's talk about feeding people, getting jobs, getting people taken care of, and practice your religion on your own time. The people in power use religion as a way to bludgeon their population. And I think Iran is one of the few countries in the Middle East that could say, all right, enough of the religious-based governance. It's time for people-based governance and religion do your own thing.
I mean, deity-based religions are definitely dying, but that we're just falling into new ones. I would say America is much more into the liberal versus conservative religions than they are any actual deity-based religions.
Explain that, because I don't quite follow.
So I think people are more committed to the tropes and the team ideas of who is on the left versus who is on the right, more than they care about whether someone is Christian or Muslim or something like that. And one of the things, like, there are a lot of black guys that hang out with Confederate people and go to Confederate, pro-Confederate rallies. And that confused me for quite a while, and then I eventually got it. It's just about your cultures and what you guys like to do together. It's not really this race-based thing. The religions are about what we are familiar with, and people are afraid of what is unfamiliar, and even if the familiar is very dangerous, they will stay in that because they're more comfortable in what they're familiar with. So it's just about your surroundings really being familiar to you.
Okay,
does that make sense?
Yeah,
So what we end up doing is this is one of the reasons why I complain to you guys a lot is because I'm going to save this for the come at me bro thing, but right. I feel as though you guys have a lot of the left narrative.
I know you think that, and in my case in particular, you probably have a better argument. But where I disagree with you when you come at us on that, and again, I don't want to spoil the segment, is the idea that I don't listen to or pay attention to other viewpoints is just not true. I listen to Breitbart.
So I see. Here's the thing: is I don't. What we do as people is that we subconsciously still steer towards what is in our blinders and perspectives. Let me read something. I just finished handing a paper I had to do, the last thing for my dissertation. And I had to put
getting through that, by the way.
Thanks. I had to put a last thing where you're talking about threats to validity. And I get a lot of pushback in scholarly fields about what I say about what scholars are. So here's just a couple sentences I put towards the end of my paper. It says, while social sciences in this fashion seeks to include all the flaws as part of the human process and does not make hard conclusions, there does remain a common but dangerous threat to the validity of the methodology. That threat is the generally narrow perspective of groupthink and prejudices from the small population sample that would author and read this type of work. It is almost assured that the core issues are being missed. Because of the very bias of scholars and the scientific fields, we speak in a language and we have a perspective and we pull things from other people, and our vision and perspective is so narrow that the odds that we're right are almost non-existent. And the same thing is true for the left and the right-wing things that you see picked up. Media and what is printed is worse now than I would agree. It's worse now than it has ever been. Fake news is an absolute real thing. It's been done to me. I've had at least 10 articles written about me that had all kinds of claims that are completely untrue, that people just make up out of thin air because it gets clicks. And that is not different on TYT or MSNBC or RT or anywhere else. And so those are our new religions. And I'm not a member of either of those religions. And I get the attacks from both sides, and both sides literally are using the same words to me to say how they're not what the other side is. And I feel like, I don't believe in horseshoe theory, but it almost feels that way, that I'm like, right now, if Martin Luther King was alive, the left would destroy him.
Oh, well.
He says that race isn't real, judge people on the content of their character.
Right.
That's what I say, and I am ostracized for that.
You know, the way, all right, so I think I know what you're saying, and if you want me to give a stab at interpreting you and seeing if I get it right and giving you a chance to respond, I'd be more than happy to do that.
Go for it.
All right. So you say race isn't real, and I know multiple people that have gotten very angry about that.
I do not say race isn't real.
All right.
Every single biologist in the entire world says race isn't real.
Okay. My point is,
period.
Define when it's how you define the word. I think we can all agree that there are...
No, it's not, because any other definition other than DNA is already defined by another word.
All right, so you're going to say... All right, then you know what? Then I'm not going to try because I'm going to screw it up. Would you say that Black or African and Asian and Native American and European are different?
They're different ethnicities.
Different ethnicities. Okay, so there's where the problem comes in. The word race gets used when ethnicity should be.
Yeah, but see, that's the thing is you're not born with ethnicity. So people are using race as something you're born with. So they don't mean ethnicity. They mean something you're born with.
All right, so you are born with an ethnicity. You are not born with a race other than human race.
No, you're not born with an ethnicity. You must participate.
Well, but there's something to your...
No, a black person in England and a black person raised in Japan and a black person raised in America and a black person raised in Africa, that's an English person, an American, a Japanese person, and an African.
So you're defined by your culture, not your...
Of course, that's all they know. Of course, that's who they are.
Okay.
You tell me that most black people they don't identify as African Britons.
No, I love it. I love it when there's a Canadian or a British person who's black and they call them an African American because they don't want to say black.
They do it all the time. It's so preposterous.
Like, okay, they're not African and they're not
American,
but you know, Mike, I feel for you because I know how annoying it is when you say something and you're making a solid point, and your words are getting misinterpreted. But I also understand the flip side because I've heard you say things in text messages that we won't get into, where it comes out as you're saying, you know, race isn't real. And it is a cultural thing. I think when you say social construct, you're saying it's a cultural thing, right?
It's just a fabricated
thing. Okay. Fabricated by a culture.
It's a fabricated categorization that cannot be defined.
But I'm 100% confident saying you would agree that in American culture, based on those constructs, there are people who are, you know, what's the right word?
No. This argument is not even settled in the black community. The vast majority of actual black Americans would agree with me.
About
it's
what?
just the people that have a microphone that would say something else. Again, everybody in the 60s was trying to eliminate the concept of race.
Okay, but you have argued. I remember arguing with you or discussing with you a couple years ago when you said that, you know, the policing practices in predominantly black communities were very different. And I said, you know, it's an economic thing. And you said, well, there's dirt poor, completely white communities in West Virginia where the same oppression does not occur. Correct?
Yeah, because I'm talking about a system, how a system responds to those who have been categorized into the category of black.
And that's where the disconnect occurs, I think, when you make that argument.
Well, just because you've been put into a category does not mean anything.
Okay, but it does explain where your attempt to articulate it can get derailed.
Of course it does, because it requires you to think about it for a second.
I think it takes at least 15 or 20 seconds.
I don't know how to do that. And ultimately, claims must be proven by the person making the claim. So what's often done to me is to say, prove to me, Michael, that I am wrong about the thing I have no evidence for. And I can't do that. So when you say I am black, I say, what does that mean? And where's your evidence that you're black? And no one's going to be able to articulate that because it doesn't exist.
And again, I'm reframing it and saying, I understand that, you know, you
can't define yourself as something you will not define. I have yet to have a single black person who identifies as being black actually explain to me what they mean when they say black. It's impossible.
You know what? When two white guys have this argument, good.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. I mean, who gives a fuck? I don't even care when they say two white guys. I'm done with the concept of it. It's not fucking real. So whether it has nothing to do with race, the simple fact is we can't do that with whiteness either. Nobody can do that with any race, because eventually what you end up saying is the black people are the people who think exactly like me, and that's not black.
So then, all right, what is your all right? So
I operate under a construct of blackness, which I think is more accurate, and which I think the best way to view it is that there was the old concept of white supremacy. So blackness would be the things that fight against power and supremacy. If you want to leave that concept, that would make it more of an ethnicity than it would be of a race. But it's really just something that has to be dropped, period. It's not real. I mean, you can't keep saying the earth is fucking flat. You know, you can't.
Well, I've never said that, but
no, I mean, as an argument, that's literally the argument that someone is black or someone is white or someone is fucking, I don't know, whatever race you want to use. It's like saying the earth is flat. There's that much evidence to the contrary.
So the punch back from that is going to be, so you're saying racism isn't real because race isn't real?
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Okay, that's but that's how it gets interpreted. And
yeah, that's why I say that race is real. Racism is real. Race is not.
Okay. See, all right, that was well said there. Sorry, not trying to sound smug, but
because race
that's
is
where
a category, and the category is not accurately described. Is not accurately applied to who you are. So it doesn't really mean anything. But the people that perceive you in this category, or the people who are put into this category, do have racism enact upon them. Yeah,
and that's where the communication breaks down, is when you say race.
No, that's where the understanding breaks down. I'm fucking clear.
Oh, but Mike, in your own words, to put you in a category, you're a scientist, and you are thinking in your scientific realm. And look, I grew up. I'm the son of a scientist. I grew up around scientists, and just because you're right doesn't mean you're understood. And
Sure.
and you bet you say, don't even try arguing that with me because you've just admitted it. But that's where the breakdown is you make perfect sense to you, and most of the time you make perfect sense to me, and then sometimes I get a little like, okay, what exactly are you saying? And your science can be dead on, but the way it's interpreted and the way it comes across, and let me be fair, the way it's misinterpreted just leads to a derailment of the discussion. And
I just get upset because this shit's recorded. It's like, just rewind what I say, or half of it's written. Like, I'm not saying.
Well, and look, I respect you, and I think the way you said it a minute ago was perfect. That race is a construct, but racism is a real.
Racism is an action. It's
an
a verb,
action of society based on things. The perfect example is as disgusting as this is Rwanda, right? Because Rwanda had an indigenous culture that got divided by oppressive colonialists who said, hey, you're part of this group now, you're part of this group now, based mostly on pigmentation. And a generation or two later, they would undermine and murder each other in massive numbers because of what was taught to them.
Yeah, but see how it's become a religion?
Religion, culture,
it's just like God. There's absolutely no evidence. And
for God?
Can't just, it's zero. So I can't keep saying I can't prove your fabrication wrong. It's just, what do you want us to do? Yeah, so you're stuck in religion. If you keep believing that that the Bible is real, well, you're delusional. If you think that race is real, you're in a delusional religion. You are.
Okay, when it comes to religion,
it's harsh.
It's hard. We've talked about this enough tonight, and enough in the last couple of years.
We're pissing enough people off.
Well, here's the funny thing. I occasionally try to piss people off. Occasionally, I just, whether I'm whatever, I'm dropping the gloves and looking for a fight. You're guilty of the same. I don't know who's guilty of it more. My guess is we would both.
Looking for a fight? I'm looking for a fight every 4 minutes.
Okay, so then you more than me. Okay, I do it rarely.
But I'm a fighter. Like, that is literally what this country has raised and invested millions of dollars into me, and I find it really shocking when people get surprised by that.
Well, and here's the thing: I'm generally not a fighter, but I'll do it. I don't look for conflict. I look for interesting things, and that it leads to conflict. But occasionally, whether it's chemically influenced by the really shitty boxed Malbec that I'm drinking right now, or are you indulging in your favorite substance?
I did earlier, but I'm in my studio now, so I don't know what it would be like in here. It's a little small and cramped up. I'd have to smoke this bad boy out.
I didn't identify the substance. Do you ever do edibles? I'm just curious. I don't know if that's your thing.
Oh, I prefer them. I have a I wouldn't say preference. I enjoy them, but they're it's just usually a little too much hassle because you have to eat a lot once you get a tolerance up, and then by the time your tolerance is up, it tastes like dog crap.
What my experience as an observer of people using edibles is not it's the lack of metering of use, because I know a lot of people.
That's rookie shit.
It's what tricky you said.
That's rookie shit. That's rookie.
Oh, rookie.
Shit.
No, I know a few. I know a few.
You can't have a problem metering if you're not a rookie. It's not rocket science.
I know people who've got experience, maybe not in quantity, but in duration that goes beyond yours, just based on age, who will have an edible and think, I don't feel shit. They'll have another one, and then it's like they did.
Eating an edible and saying I don't feel anything and eating another one is literally the number one rule not to do. Look it up. So that's why I say that I don't believe them.
All right. Well, I know
number one advice.
I know a few veterans who've made that rookie mistake in the last couple of years.
All right. Well, I need to have conversations with them.
I would say with usually entertaining results, but
certainly entertaining.
Yeah.
But once you're eating a couple 100 milligrams, it just tastes so bad that it's like choking down liquid plant, and it's
All
terrible.
right. So the fact that you've built your tolerance to that point, that's on you.
Yeah, it is on me.
You'll
I'll
own that?
agree. So yeah, I'll own that. So let me hit a couple more points before we hit the fun stuff.
All right.
You said your dad was a responsible gun owner, but yet he let you have access to it.
Yes, I did.
I just thought I'd have contradicted yourself in the sentence.
Look, I was taught very young, like how you don't touch guns and whatever.
You know that how many kids were taught that same thing and then went and shot somebody.
I know that I
Okay.
didn't mess with them. All right.
No kid is a responsible gun owner, and I argue there's no such thing as a responsible gun owner, period. But
All right.
just
Go-
saying, I
number
thought it
two.
was funny.
No, go ahead.
You guys have a tendency to frame violence as if it's a rational response, and I really wish I could get that out of everybody's head.
As if it
Violence
is a rational response, or
yeah,
an
like you can either way, that you can rationalize somebody out of it, or that they got rationalized into it. This is just not true. So when they say the ideas of saying like, well, what can we do to get this person to change their mind? How can we change society? This isn't something that's won in a war of ideas. They're having a biological breakdown. All violence is a biological breakdown that goes against everything human beings have evolved to do.
all right. Let me. I'm not going to argue with you. I'm going to actually agree
Sure.
with you in a weird way. I was thinking about, like I said, I was thinking about the royal family shit and the tyranny of the Middle Ages and whatever. And I thought, people lined up with swords, clubs, spears, whatever the fuck, and ran to their likely death with nothing to benefit themselves or their loved ones at all because of what they were either convinced to do or forced to do at the fear of not doing it. So there's people committing violent acts with no rational reason for doing it. If I'm getting way too off topic, I apologize. But I mean, to get
Even when there's a rational one, the person will say, man, afterwards, you're like, man, I don't know why I fucking did that.
But when you deal with violence on the level of a teenager shooting up a school,
Sure, afterwards they often don't understand it, and they can't articulate even what they're talking about or their motivations because it's a biological breakdown. You can't articulate my fucking brain freaked out.
No, the only thing I think we totally disagree on is the level of medication that is designed to distract you from humanity.
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying you have any evidence that it's a negative.
Sorry, say that again.
You have evidence that the country has become drug saturated, but you don't have any evidence that it's a negative.
All right. I'll back off that, and I wish I could find out what. Again, if 99.9% of the people who are emotionally detached from their lives do nothing wrong, that 0.1% can do a lot of damage.
Of course, but so what? I don't understand the point.
Well, the point is just that
yeah, I mean, what would come first? The person having a biological issue that needs medication, or the medication is the causation? That's what I'm saying. You have no evidence that it's harmful. You could be reducing.
That's you know what? All right, that's well said. That's a very good point. Maybe if we didn't have that medication, school shootings would happen 3 times a day.
My opinions are purely based on the data. If the data goes a different way, I will fucking completely change.
I know that. And my only beef is that a lot of things that you're looking for data for, the data isn't available.
Sure, so we don't make conclusions until then.
But when the data isn't attainable is
Sure,
where...
what data isn't attainable?
Is it?
What data isn't?
Well, the data of what would happen if we had a non-antidepressant fueled society.
Oh, we could totally study that. Absolutely. So you would have the correlation of people who were on these drugs and weren't to violent crime. And again, they are vastly more likely to be victims of a crime than to commit a violent crime, even the medicated. So there's even no implied evidence to go that way.
I'll back off on this after I say that I will try to look into I'll try to do it in a way that you
I
find.
agree. I mean, you can find that evidence, but the problem is that all crime has been dropping since the 90s.
Yeah.
So your only correlation is going to be a negative correlation. It's just impossible. I mean,
Other,
the only
other
other
than,
way would
other
be
than if I isolate the data point of school shootings perpetrated by people of a certain age.
sure, but if you're talking about with medications, then you just don't know what the problems is with the other people. So an example of this, I'll say that's easy to find is in Colorado. There was a lot of scam science coming out that was saying that like 2.3% of the population who was pulled over in traffic accidents in Colorado had cannabis in their system, which was growing up, and therefore cannabis was causing crashes. Now, for one, there's no data that ever gives that anywhere else, so that would be an outlier, and that's why it got a lot of attention. But when you do that, you don't have the reference point. So if 2.3% of the general population or 2.3% of the people involved in crashes in Colorado have cannabis in their system, but 10.3% of the drivers do, then you have a negative correlation.
Agreed. And I mean, look, I as an engineer who was a PhD dropout in pharmaceutical sciences, I know how you can manipulate data to fit your narrative.
Almost anything you want, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and I've got some stories about that from why I dropped out of grad school. When I was told, you need to make the data say this. And I said, but the data doesn't say that. And my advisor pulled me in the room and said, you need to make sure this experiment looked valuable. And I'm like,
yeah, he's trying to get you your certification, man.
She actually, you sexist son of a bitch.
She was trying to get you to pass the damn class.
No,
okay?
There's a lot more to the story.
Well, a lot of it, I would say, is that way. They want you to get the shit done.
That is true. All right, so let's.
All right. So last thing.
Yep.
And it's just a point, I guess. I don't understand how Americans completely dismiss the reports of the soldiers and the citizens that are over in Israel on the lines right now. And I'm going to we're transition that into the come at me, bro thing.
All right.
But I've been historically very supportive of Palestine. But
all right,
I want to always. I think our biases and our prejudices are our greatest enemy. So we have to constantly be fighting those. And when I fight those in the latest thing, this shit is not making sense to me. So to transition into that, let's go into the Whiskey Congress. Come at me, bro.
All right. Well, mine's.
And I'm gonna go first.
All right. Go ahead. Go.
All right. So come at me, bro. How can you, as a podcast and as a presenter of media, be able to be different when the only tool for stories we have is the mainstream narratives?
All right. So I don't know what I can do to get more of a diverse narrative than listening to mainstream media, both right and left, listening to everything from Patriot Channel to CNN to Fox News to MSNBC to podcasts like, I mean, Abby Martin is someone who I really find fascinating as a podcast guest. I've heard her on a few different shows. I don't think I'm as narrow-minded as I'm apparently come across.
It's not about you.
All right. All right. So in general, I think
it's
that's what you
about
need to do.
Where will the data come from? It's like the whole thing with solutions coming from within the system. Solutions do not come from within the system. So if what we know is long been true that printed information is propaganda, how do we evolve past that? And I was talking about those embassy riots because the way I hear all the general talk about this, whether it's left or right, doesn't seem to give a shit about what the actual like rational data points is. So even what we're saying with that situation, so I heard you guys, it was mainly Steve, but I don't want to talk about him, but I'm going to give you the blame.
I was going to say, I
about
always yell at him when he talks about you. So
yeah, about shooting that they were shooting these people at the border, at the fence, and you guys were presenting it in a way that I have seen the left present it, like it was a protest. This wasn't a protest. This was a national border. So if you are talking about people massed at our borders, our southern border, trying to run and get over the wall, you're goddamn right we're going to kill them. This is a nation, and there are lines that you do not cross, and the same thing goes for Israel. I do not buy the narrative at all that this has something to do with the embassy. They've been doing things like this for a long time, and to think that some kid is going to go lay down their life because of an embassy being there, that just doesn't make any fucking sense. And there's tons of Palestinians that live in Israel. They're not out there protesting the embassy. It's the only ones on the outside. So I just like, I don't, there's nothing that indicate that those protesting has anything to do with bombing or with the embassy. And there's no reason to, I think, any nation to accept the possibility of people running over your fucking national walls.
Okay, so the only pushback I'm going to give you is the idea that, to compare what's gone on in Palestine and Israel, or gone on in Jerusalem, where you have multiple nations that feel that Jerusalem is theirs, and
and this is Americans talking about how other people have a homeland right. Get the fuck out of here. That is awfully ironic all the time. When a bunch of Americans are pro-Palestinian talking about they have a right to their homelands, like this is our fucking homeland.
Well, I was joking, but
it's so. I'm like, this is the most ironic thing I've ever heard.
The one thing that I was glad that we talked about was that the narrative is generally that Muslims or Israelis and the Muslim nations have been at war for thousands of years. You just can't end it. It's really 70. And it's really based on...
for different reasons. Yeah, but one of the reasons there when it comes to like Afghanistan and stuff is they have a long history in their culture because they're not an instant gratification culture.
And there's a whole bunch of misconceptions there, right? The Russian invasion of Afghanistan was really about gaining resources, and
that's all the invasions are about.
Yeah, it is, and I mean, all right, I'll derail the whole conversation if I allow that, or if either of us allow that to happen. But yeah, I know what you're saying. If we said that the protests occurred specifically because of the embassy, I don't think that was what we were trying to say. What we were trying to say is the fact that Israeli soldiers were shooting.
You goddamn right.
All right. Well,
that is a national border.
Since
can you imagine? I'm sorry, I am anti-military. I am anti-policing. But if we are,
what do you know about military policing?
Right, yeah. You can put me on the wall again if we need to. Believe me.
For those who don't know, Mike is a 4-year Marine and 11-year veteran of the Baltimore Police. So that was entirely sarcasm. The 90% of the people, 99% of the people who listen to our show know who you are. I actually have a few guys that I know from the Cleveland comedy scene who think I'm super cool because I talk to you on a regular basis. So thank you for that.
They should raise their standards.
Exactly. You have accomplished the impossible, Mike. You've made me look cool.
I've been trying to be charitably making people cool for a long time.
That is charity. All right. So my come at me, bro, was going to be define mental health, because a lot of us want to say mental health is you can't be mentally healthy and just indiscriminately kill people based on whatever. So how do you define mental health?
Yeah, I would agree that, I mean, it's almost a necessary prerequisite that someone that's committing murder is going through a mental illness, if you want to say that way. What I think is wrong is viewing it as an illness. It'd be more correctly to view them as an episode or a series of episodes or a condition, because we're all mentally ill from the basic standpoint that this can happen to any of us at any point in time. So you can have a tumor, you can have some kind of injury, you can just have your biology flip out because some gland goes wrong and your adrenaline floods your system and you become crazy, or you can ingest something that you have a reaction to. We are all prone to this at any point in time. That's why there's no such thing as a responsible gun owner, because we're apes with death sticks that are all fucking mentally ill. And that, yes, there are guns here, and I will use them if I need to use them. And I completely understand that I am a hypocrite for having guns and saying there's no such thing as a responsible gun owner. Maybe I'm not being a hypocrite. What I'm saying is I'm an irresponsible gun owner like everybody else. But
that's some Inception shit there, Mike.
I mean, I get that. I get the whole thing. But I think we have been extremely lucky that people that obtain my skill sets and higher have been largely selected because they don't freak out. If we were the type of people that freak out, if you think that 100 and some people dead in Vegas is impressive, you haven't seen shit until somebody with real skill does something.
I mean, so that's the sort of thing you say that will get spun in the wrong direction. I won't do that, but I know what you're saying.
Well, I'm telling you, if I go
right.
crazy, 167 is laughable.
If you wanted to inflict mass destruction, I have no doubts that you would do it far better than some dude in Vegas with a bump stock.
You wouldn't even know it was me. You might get me like my 10th one in.
All right.
I'm in for 30 seconds and gone. I'll take out 130 seconds to get the fuck out of there.
That's a pretty dark way to end. I don't want to end that way.
This is the skill set that at least 5,000 people in this country have.
Oh yeah. Oh, I mean, look,
we're just lucky that in order to make that kind of training, generally, I think these people are the people that don't have and are very less likely to do
and so
that.
This is why. All right, you've fought with me on this before. This is why I say magazine restrictions are a good idea, because someone with your skills, it don't matter to some fucking dope with who's.
I agree.
Right.
I agree.
Well,
I'm not going to push you hard. I just don't think it will end up being worth the effort in the end when we can commit the same amount of effort to things that would be much more effective.
All right. This is one of those things where I think as a pretend wannabe responsible gun owner, I can say that's something I'll give up because it might save a life here or there under these.
There's just so many of them out there though already.
What's that?
There's so many out there already. It's almost like the same thing where you're just flooded with the environment. So even if we stop 30 round magazines now, I mean, they're still going to be out there for a long time. I wouldn't be surprised if you could find some in a bag of mine somewhere.
Here's I was in West Virginia for the weekend, as I told you. I heard some shit. Well, let's anything else you want to go through? We were well over an hour 20 now. Well,
I go long. You guys.
I don't give a shit. I'll keep rolling.
I can fucking go on for forever. But so we just I did propose to you to go ahead and do a song.
You did not propose to me. Let's get that clear.
I did propose to you. I don't know why you're so nervous about it. It seems I don't even know what I did with my notes. Hold on, I closed my thing. All right, so I was talking about possibly doing songs where we went.
Oh yeah. I was saying you didn't propose marriage to me.
Jesus, we already got that joke. So it didn't make it funny. So I've been fascinated lately. One of my big things is on YouTube. There's all these people that listen to different music that they haven't listened to and then review it for the first time. There's one Vin and Story, Hectic, Lost in Vegas. There are three of them that I listen to, and I really like. This is my new thing. I enjoy it so damn much that now it's got me into music more because I'm watching these people, especially when they listen to Korn and Slipknot, who are two bands that I really grew up intimately with, and kind of still am huge fans of, and their songs have been a huge part of my life. So to see these people reviewing them, it's like my new favorite thing now is if you watch, especially when it's like hood-like dudes. So people have never listened to any heavy metal at all or something, and then they put in Metallica or like Master of Puppets or something, and you slowly see them start to head nod, and they can't help it, and it's just like, this is so fucking awesome. Like, this is the same thing that happened to me when I was 12. the first time I heard One from Metallica, I was like, oh my God, what is this? And it doesn't matter like who they are, even though they've been in this different culture, they've really adapted to this. And Slipknot and Korn and Metallica are like these bands that a lot of these guys have grown to appreciate. So that's why music has become this weird thing for me now, and I wanted to go over something. So to do the same thing to you, I propose that you would listen to a newer Slipknot song called Kill Pop.
All right.
And there's a couple of things about this that I'll tell you after you tell me what you thought about it. But so we know it's set up. Kill Pop is a song by Slipknot. Slipknot is an Iowa-based heavy metal band. Their singer is in my opinion, there's two heavy metal bands that rule the scene of all time in history, and that's Slipknot and Pantera. And they're definitely like up there to me, legendarily, to things. And they're coming out with a new album.
Slipknot, to me, I know them a little bit. Duality is probably my favorite Slipknot song.
That's their most famous.
Yeah, and that's probably why I know them best. That song best. I recently became, I won't say recently, in the past, I don't know, 5 years, I really started to respect Metallica. Here's where our age difference comes.
Oh, they're great. Metallica.
They're phenomenal. They're phenomenal. And
Metallica.
Mike, when I was in high school, if you were walking around in a all right, Beavis and Butthead were caricatures of dudes I went to high school with.
Agreed.
So well, I was dealing with it in real time. So,
yeah, I mean,
I saw these guys. I'm like, you fucking wastoids. And here's the thing: Metallica, fucking awesome musicians, great songs. One of the things I do when I write articles for Whiskey Congress, and shameless plug, yeah, or am doing other late night work, I will do. I think exactly what you're describing. I will literally put on a playlist on YouTube and just rock out to that while I'm writing or researching or goofing off on the internet. And Metallica, Enter Sandman is something, I know it's another very famous song, but it's a great fucking song. And one of my favorite Metallica things is actually the the song Ecstasy of Gold.
Did you say Enter Sandman?
Yes.
I drop out before then.
Okay. Have you?
Yeah.
Do you know the song?
What is it? Ecstasy? What's the last album for me?
Okay. But
I don't know. I have to look it up.
Yeah, they get a lot of abuse for, they get beat up for falling off. But do you know the song Ecstasy of Gold? It is the song that is in the gunfight at the end of the movie The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
No.
Yeah, I'm old. Anyway, Metallica does an instrumental version of that is just plain fucking awesome. So that's my, if you feel like checking something out, YouTube Metallica Ecstasy of Gold and just listen to them jam out. It's amazing. They were great musicians. And
they are now. They're kind of back on it now. Their last two albums have been pretty good.
In that in that era of music, there was Metallica ends up being great, and there were so many bad bands with that look of the.
You didn't like Whitesnake.
They were awful. And so was White Lion, and so was Great White. In fact, they were all the same fucking band, and they're awful, just awful.
Well, see, I caught the tail end of that when I was growing up.
I know.
Then when I heard Metallica, I was like, "Wah!"
Exactly. So look, Tawny Katane crawling across the top of a Ferrari, hot as shit. Not denying it, but musically they sucked. Whereas Metallica, looking back, were great musicians and great lyricists. So anyway, if you want to bring some Slipknot into there, I'm cool with Slipknot.
Well, I wouldn't consider Metallica the level of heavy that Slipknot is.
I agree.
I would consider them one step down in the genre.
What do you think of Disturbed?
I used to like them a lot. They're theatrical. So
what about Blur?
I don't know who they are. I generally like metal that I find believable.
All right.
Right. So while Disturbed is really good, they're all like high school theater people, and they sing songs about like kind of Megadeth-y songs about, demons coming in and religious overtones. And I'm like, nah.
Can I brag about my nephew for a minute?
Sure.
So my nephew, who I love him, he's my nephew. I went to his graduation in West Virginia this weekend. So literally, I mentioned the drive, fly to Ohio, drive to West Virginia, drive back the same day. This kid has become a Morgantown, West Virginia sensation. He, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, I bought him a wah-wah bar for his guitar. And he goes, he got a guitar, and he played some sports, he did some other stuff. He got asked to do a guitar solo at his high school graduation, which I thought, okay, cool, but whatever. You're graduating from Morgantown High School. They showed me a video like a couple months before that. He literally was doing a guitar solo with his band and did the whole Jimi Hendrix play behind his head thing. Now,
awesome.
Maybe that's not as amazing as I think it is. I have no musical talent whatsoever. But he did that, and the crowd went nuts. I'm like, fucking A, this is my nephew, and he's Jimi Hendrixing behind his head. I'm not bragging about my nephew on our shows, and I will stop. But I was so amazed that he was doing that. What's that?
Live vicariously. Have at it.
Yeah, exactly. Live vicariously. I'm just bragging on the kid. I was so amazed with his doing that. And again, maybe it's not as next level as it appears to someone like me with no musical talent. But watching him do that on YouTube, it was like, wow.
Playing the guitar well is difficult, period.
And doing it backwards must be tougher.
Yeah, must definitely harder.
All right, any more musical?
So I'll just for this song, so people know, it's according to when you hear it, it's like it's presented as a parallel to like somebody giving their lover a drug that would kill them, and seeing that as a way to get that person to love you, but even though that drug is going to hurt them, you both end up hurting in the end. But according to Corey Taylor, it's really a metaphor for a love and hate, with his love and hate for the music industry.
All right.
And so I don't have a problem with that. But with the metaphor, the way it's laid out, it can really be applied to any kind of addictive things that people are doing in a loving relationship. And one of the reasons why I really like this is a new album. This is the only album that Slipknot has with their new drummer. And the new drummer is just, it's so weird. He appeared with Bruce Springsteen's E Street Band. It's where this drummer comes from. And he is wicked, this new drummer that has a sound. So I wanted to play just a little clip, and we'll see how well it comes off. And you just got to listen to this drummer for a second. This is a clip from Slipknot.
Let it go.
All right, that's just a little clip there. Everybody should turn into the video to see it and watch that drummer just shred that whole album. He shreds on. It's amazing.
You were jamming out the whole time for that, weren't you?
I jam it. If you catch me jamming out, it's only going to most likely be a handful of bands. It's going to be Rage, Metallica, System of a Down, Korn, Slipknot, or did I say Nine Inch Nails?
You did not. They're awesome too. So you're not a Disturbed guy or a Blur guy?
No. I definitely. I think I'm probably just because I'm more grungy. I think that's kind of the influence of growing up in the '90s. That I don't like any polished sounds. So that's about as polished as I can get. So like Jack White is probably my favorite guitar player, hands down.
All right.
And it's completely just,
so you're a Dave Grohl guy.
I mean, I don't like, I like him as a drummer for Nirvana, but I don't like him in Foo Fighters. It's way too polished.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, I don't like Poppy. I like people.
Look, that's where I get in trouble with music, is if it's too poppy. I lose it. And then sometimes I come back to it later. I'm like, all right, I appreciate why people like this. It was just too popular in its time.
And I like lyrics that challenge you. I like things that reach down, like Master of Puppets from Metallica, masterful lyrically. I think a lot of Slipknot stuff is that way too, just lyrically, just masterful.
The song you said, come up with a song. You were obviously going there. I came up with the Bad Wolves remake.
But what did you think? You didn't say what you thought of Kills Pop.
It was cool. I like it. I did not know it until today. One of my flaws as a music analyst is it just kind of like gets into my head, and then sometimes I have to listen to it like 3 or 4 times for it to actually break in. I've embarrassed myself.
I think you have to listen to it that many times to start to appreciate its subtleties and stuff.
Well, sometimes it takes a few more. I've had a few songs that I didn't get until like a few years ago that I've listened to for 20 years. I'm like, oh, that's actually a great lyrical.
Are you one of the people that just realized that Pink Floyd's great?
No, but I didn't realize that the song "In the Air Tonight" that he was saying, "Oh Lord," not "Come on."
Come on, what?
I did not get the song "In the Air Tonight" until like 2 years ago, despite the fact that it was in my life for 25 years. I loved it, and Eminem fucking said it flat out 10 years ago. In fact, no, in the air, shit, that song's 30 years old, probably, or at least 25. So yeah, I'm not the greatest music analyst, and my music nerdiness or music lack of knowledge is coming out as the shitty Malbec from the
okay, so
box wines
I get the point. I understand. And
but
definitely
it's not that I don't
song.
enjoy it. Like I said, I will. My music appreciation usually comes from a movie. So if it appears in a movie, like not that long ago, I was listening to "Only a Memory" by the Smithereens because I had recently watched Bull Durham, which neither of those things probably make any sense to you.
So many cultural references
I know.
that I can't keep up with. Okay.
I know. All right, man.
And your song, which is definitely one of those songs.
I mean, check out the Smithereens. They're probably too mellow. If you're a metal guy, the Smithereens won't be up your alley, but they're a good band.
I've heard of them.
You ever listen to Midnight Oil?
Yeah, of course. I think so. That makes sense. I had to listen to that, right?
Again,
it's a classic album, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's classic to you.
I've had to hear it somewhere though.
Midnight Oil. I mean, they were. I'll text you a couple of Midnight Oil songs, or at least one in particular that you'll like. Cause
all right, I'll try it. We'll see if it's any more of these ones. Like when you sent me that you wanted me to listen to somebody covering Zombie.
Oh yeah, I love that.
I was like, you are insane. So my first rule coming into this is whenever I hear somebody covering Zombie, it's like my first rule is don't do that.
Why?
Because you're not gonna be able to sing like her.
You're right. She was awesome. She was fucking amazing. And I like female vocalists who can just fucking rock out. I like that. I like Evanescence. Bring Me to Life by Evanescence, and I know it's very mainstream, but I love that song. It's one that I will play.
You love that poppy rock.
It is. I love it. And the song Zombie by Cranberries is great. And then Bad Wolves give it a different sound. Did you like, you're not a Disturbed guy, but when Disturbed redid Sound of Silence, I loved it until it was overplayed to the point where I couldn't take it anymore. But
I don't know. I don't know what that song is.
All right. All right. So last question, or last musical thing I will bring up, and you can keep going if you want, but Dropkick Murphys and Flogging Molly are coming to Cleveland as co-headliners next week, and I'm going to try to get tickets. Would that interest you?
You should go to see Dropkick Murphys.
I love Dropkick. I've seen them before.
Okay.
I mean,
that's more of an event,
Yeah. Oh, no doubt. But Dropkick and Flogging Molly co-headlining is interesting. I will try to go if I can get a ticket. I will not be in the mosh pit. I'm a little old and out of shape for that shit, but I will fuck up a kid or two before it gets proven.
Oh, jeez. The only two that we have coming here, I know Nine Inch Nails is about to go on tour, and I would like to try and get that, but sometimes these bigger bands, I just don't like trying to get into that experience, and they're all expensive. And then Slipknot's going on tour next year, and we're going to have to go do that, me and my daughter and wife.
I can't believe you take your daughter to Slipknot.
Oh, she's dying to go.
I'm sure she, when I was a grad student at Ohio State in '95, I think Nine Inch Nails came through, and the number of arrests in Columbus, Ohio, during the Nine Inch Nails concert was shocking to me at the time. Now, granted, I was a naive 24-year-old kid or 23-year-old kid, but a few friends of mine went to the event and they said that it was an event to behold. And the fact that they were doing that in 1995 and they're still touring today says something.
Well, I bet the show is even better, but there's no way there's going to be a lot of injuries. We're all like 35 and older now. So
the arrest I remember talking about was a dude getting a beej in the fucking. My friend said literally like he had to step around a dude getting blown in the walkway down trying to get back to his seat. And the police didn't think that was an appropriate display of public affection.
I think that the police committed the crime there.
I agree with you completely. That's why I became a Democrat. I've done that in my stand-up act. I said, Bill Clinton got vilified for getting a blowjob at the Oval Office, saying he disgraced the Oval Office. I'm like, bullshit. That's exactly why you get to the Oval Office.
Yes, it's true. That is what power is often, right?
Well, I didn't think it was power. That was just
but
awesomeness.
when I watched the video when I looked up the song, I actually watched a live version that was in the Late Late Show, it was pretty cool to see it live, and I thought they did a good job. He sounds a bit like Eddie Vedder at first.
Job with Bad Wolves.
Yeah, whoever's singing the Bad Wolves guy sounds a bit like Eddie Vedder. But I was like, at that point in the stage, so does Dolores O'Riordan. What's her name?
Dolores O'Riordan. Yeah.
O'Riordan. And then as he goes on, I'm waiting for it, and everybody should know what you're waiting for if you're listening to this song. Like, when's he going to hit the note? And he can't hit the note.
Few can.
He doesn't even try. So I mean that was part of my problem with covering it. But I was really happy that you chose the song "Zombie" because of what it's about.
Yeah.
It's about the IRA and the oppression and terrorism that took place in Ireland and England. And it's particularly a link to a bombing, but it doesn't matter the individual incident, the overall of what the IRA in England is going through. I thought it's very much like the American Revolution, but this is a good example of how narratives are. The IRA is seen as this criminal organization. They do all these bad things. They are internationally known as terrorists, and yet there is no distinguishable articulable difference between the IRA and the American revolutionaries. So, let's think about how that is for where our biases are. And this song may have actually helped inspire the IRA to reduce violence because they went into a ceasefire pact shortly after this song, which is basically a criticism towards them because they killed kids. And also in this song, Dolores O'Riordan was supposed to record on this song with them, but she died the day that they were supposed to record.
That's the brutal part
crazy.
About it. That's how I came across it, across the remake. I was like, fuck. And that's one of the sad things about music today is I listen to stuff from my, the music from my growing up years and like, here Prince, he's dead. Fuck. Tom Petty, I was a Tom Petty fan. He's dead. And just one after another. And
See,
so many.
The older generation's always complaining. I mean, come on. I grew up with, I've lost all of the grunge singers except for Eddie Vedder. Does he count?
Yes, he counts, but you're right.
No, he does not count being in the club of good singers. That's for damn sure.
Yeah.
Well, Chris Cornell's still alive, look, so all we have is Chris Cornell. That's legit.
And I mean, I actually, Nirvana was, to me, Nirvana and Pearl Jam are what saved music to me because.
Wow. That whole only one good album that Pearl Jam made saved it for you. Huh?
The 80s.
You must have played 10 over and over and over again.
The shitty 80s hair bands just I hated them so much. And I blame Bon Jovi and Van Halen for being good, but inviting those fuckers to the party.
That's so funny. I blame Motley Crue.
Fair. Motley Crue is in that shit band. They're awful too. Girls. That's not
I used to rock that out until I found better stuff.
I can't believe we this devolved into a white guy music 10 years apart age. I'm 47. We're about 10 years apart, right?
Yes, I'm
All right.
38.
38. Oh, 38, only 9 years. Yeah, I'll own that. I don't know if this made it on one of the shows you listened to or even talked about it, but I was in a sort of a quick serve barbecue joint out here about 5 weeks ago, and I hadn't shaved in a while, and the white hair and the facial hair was coming through as white, and this 16-year-old black girl gave me the senior discount. I did not take that well.
Why not? Take any discount you can.
It was 44 cents. My dignity is worth about 48.
Okay, I'll give you that.
And I don't blame the girl. To her, I'm sure I looked ancient, and I'm sure some person gave her a hard time for not getting the discount. When I saw that, I was like, that was just a punch in the dick.
Well, I know.
All
I'll
right.
tell you about all my problems of getting carded for tobacco.
Fuck off. All right. On that note, brother, I've had a lot of fun tonight.
Oh, it's late for you too,
It is
boy.
late.
What is it?
It's
1
late.
a.m.?
It's late for me. It's after midnight, and I have to pack up and get on the road and head back to Ohio tomorrow. But I
Well,
really
have
enjoyed
fun.
this. Let me do my stuff, and we'll talk. We'll catch up maybe tomorrow, or if not tomorrow, on Friday.
Okay. This has been a presentation, a collaboration of Whiskey Congress and Half of Nuance.
And half of nuance. Love it, man. Thank you. All right. Good night, brother. Take care.
Peace, dude.